Hey, we are kicking off a new series today called A New Way to Be Human. A New Way to Be Human. Because when we think about Jesus and the whole reason this thing happened, it's really about being a new type of human, a new creation, sometimes we call it. Now, you might be wondering, hey, a new way to be human, what happened to the real Christmas message series? What happened to Christmas at the movies? Where's the pictures of presents and peppermints and candy canes and reindeers and stuff like that? Well, it's because we're not in a Christmas series. We're in an Advent series. And if you didn't grow up with Advent, or maybe it's been a while since you thought about it, or maybe you just never paid that much attention to it, Advent is a little bit different than Christmas, right? It's this season of preparation leading up to Christmas, or Christmas, either one, it's fine. It's a season of preparation leading up to Christmas, and you might be asking, well, preparation for what? We're going to take over the world. That's what we're going to do. No, it's a season of preparation for the arrival of Jesus. All Advent means is it's a Latin term for arrival. Arrival. So we are preparing for the arrival of Jesus. Now, Jesus did arrive 2,000 years ago. So in Advent, we remember that Jesus arrived 2,000 years ago. We're thankful for it. We also look forward to when Jesus arrives again in the future. It could be 2 seconds from now. It could be 2,000 years from now. We don't know, but we know that he will come again, and he will take us with him to go where he is, and all of that is true. We also make room in our hearts for the arrival of Jesus every moment of every day now. So we're really doing those three things. We remember, we look forward, and we make room now. And this is important because when Jesus arrives, everything changes, right? We look back 2,000 years ago, when Jesus arrived on the scene, everything changed. Everything became different. It was nasty and brutish and short, that is, life was. And then Jesus showed up. People were constantly at war. People were always fighting. There was corruption of all kinds on all sides. And then Jesus shows up and he says, hey, I'm different and I want you to live in a different way. And his followers took that seriously and they started living as if that were true, that they were different and that they were embarking on this whole new thing and that they could live like Jesus. And they started changing the way things happened. Instead of fighting all the time, they looked for ways to extend mercy and patience with each other. They looked for something else. And can we be honest for a second? The old way of the world wasn't working, so it's a really good thing Jesus showed up. The old way of the world is kind of broken, and you and I both know it. We sense it. We sense it in our relationships with each other. We see it on TV. We hear it in music. We sense it in our politics. We sense it in the world around us in general. When we look at what's going on around the world, we sense that the old way of the world is broken and it's not working and we need something new. And the good news is that Jesus is that new thing. So in Advent, a lot of people look around and they go, hey, what's going on? And can this ever be different? In fact, a lot of us, we journey through life asking this exact question. Isn't there something better than this? We look at what's happening in the world. We look at how broken everything seems to be, and we ask, isn't there something better than this? And when we ask this question in Advent, as we prepare for the arrival of Jesus, as we remember the arrival of Jesus, and as we make room for Jesus, the answer comes to us. Yes, there is something better than this. And his name's Jesus. Now, the thing is, all of us, when we see what's going on in the world, when we see what's wrong with the world, when we see what's broken, when we see what needs fixing, we have different responses to that. We have different ways of handling that issue. Often we get overwhelmed, but at the very least, there's a little bit of a tension there. And we have one of about 4 ways we generally respond. Some of us, we withdraw and protect ourselves. That's that friend who kind of just, they hole up. When something goes wrong in their life, they get real quiet and they kind of go ghost mode and they get out of the way and they're the one in the corner or you don't hear from them for a few weeks and you're wondering what's going on. They're just withdrawing and protecting themselves. Others have never heard of this strategy. Instead, they fight harder and louder. They fight harder and louder. We all know that person. Then others, they try to control everything, every little thing. Because for them, the world is out of order and things are spinning out and chaotic. And they say, hey, I can make this better. I'm going to control it. I'm reading some of y'all's mail right now, ain't I? Others, they numb themselves with distractions. And that distraction can be books, movies. It can be trips, substances, you name it. We distract ourselves so that we don't have to feel the pain of understanding that this world is broken as it is. Because we know instinctively that there is something better. This is almost a universal human impulse to look for a better world. Pretty much every civilization that's ever existed has wanted something better and has looked for something better, a better version of what they have, understanding that what they already have isn't quite working out as well as it could be. So when we understand that these are how most of us react today, we can also understand that people were asking the same question 2,000 years ago and before that. So when we understand all of that, we understand this isn't just a 2025 American problem. This is a human problem. This is a human experience that all of us walk through. In fact, it extends across all generations, all ethnicities, all languages, you name it, it's there. And it was there 2,700 years ago, 700 years before Jesus, with a prophet named Isaiah. Isaiah lived in a time as an ancient Near Eastern man of Jewish descent. He lived in a time when things were pretty chaotic, pretty hectic, and I would say a lot more violent than they are now. People were dying in war. Corruption was rampant. Famine happened seemingly anytime, whenever. People were traumatized from an early age. If they made it past that early age, they were still traumatized throughout life, and they tried to keep going. Combine that with the fact that Isaiah was part of the nation of Israel, and Israel had kind of split up into two kingdoms, the northern kingdom and the southern kingdom, and the northern kingdom was really walking away from God. The southern kingdom was kind of going the same direction. They had walked away from God, and so God said, look, you walked away from me, so I can't protect you anymore. I've got to remove my hand of protection because, thy will be done. And when God does that, Israel starts being attacked. And when Isaiah was on doing his prophet thing, Isaiah is watching as Assyria, an empire, comes in and starts taking over this northern kingdom of Israel. So Isaiah knows what it feels like to feel like the world is chaotic, like the world is breaking apart right in front of your very eyes. And maybe some of you have felt something similar before. Maybe you turn on the TV, you scroll through your social media, you name it, you have conversations with people. Maybe you do that and you just feel like, what's going on in this world? Is this going to ever be good again? Maybe you feel like the world is just falling apart at the seams. I'm sure Isaiah felt that way. And he looked around and I bet he was asking, isn't there something better than this? Well, he was a prophet, Isaiah, and luckily, God spoke to him and sometimes would give him visions. And in this vision that God gave Isaiah, one of these visions God gave Isaiah, he said, look, things are going to get better. Things are going to get better. This isn't the end of the story. They're going to get better. And one day, everybody is going to come to Jerusalem. They're going to come to the temple, into Jerusalem where the temple is, and they're going to realize that Israel's God is the God, and Israel's way of doing things, like God's way of doing things is the way to do things. And they're all going to be unified in this. And it's going to be beautiful and wonderful. In fact, Isaiah wrote some of this down for us. He said it this way. He, talking about God, will judge the nations and will settle disputes for many peoples. They will beat their swords into plowshares and their spears into pruning hooks. Nation will not take up sword against nation, nor will they train for war anymore. And he goes on and says this part. Come, descendants of Jacob, that's people of Israel, let us walk in the light of the Lord. That's good. I mean, did you catch that? They said they're taking their weapons and they're turning them into farming tools. They're taking their weapons and they're turning them into farming tools. People are unified. Now, I don't care if you're religious or not. That sounds really good to me. Like this idea that we're all unified, that sounds good. Peace sounds good. Security sounds good. Safety, all of this sounds good. These are good things. And Isaiah sees this ahead. So what's really happening is God is telling Isaiah and us through Isaiah and the people that Isaiah was originally talking to, he's telling them, hey, listen, it may look bleak right now. It may look really, really bad right now, but this is not the final version of things. There is good ahead. Something better than you could ever imagine is ahead for you. And friend, that's a word for all of us today too. Sometimes we get going in life and all we see is the darkness of life. All we can see is how broken it seems, how overwhelming it seems. And we can feel traumatized by what's happening in the world. We can feel anxious about all the stuff happening around us. I want you to hear me when I say this. Don't give up. Don't give up, because if you hold on, if you hold tight to God, things are going to get better. We've watched this happen historically. God told Isaiah, things are going to get better. You can't see it now, but ultimately, cling tight to me. Things are going to get better. Now, it took a while. It took a while. Isaiah said this 700 years before Jesus. You can imagine, if you were somebody living in that 700-year period between Isaiah and Jesus, you might have started wondering, Isaiah, did you get that wrong? You might have heard people saying, why are we listening to that Isaiah guy again? I mean, he kind of got that one wrong, didn't he? It's been 647 years. It's been 681 years. Why are we still listening to that guy? Why do you believe that? And then this little baby was born. This little baby was born in a place called Bethlehem. And then he was raised in Egypt for a little bit, and then he grew up in Nazareth. And next thing you know, he's a grown man. He's this grown man. And he starts teaching people. By all accounts, he's a good guy, but next thing you know, he starts preaching about stuff. And he's saying some different things. In fact, it's almost as if he's departing from the letter of the law, but it's like he's got the heart of the law, a real firm grasp on that. It's like he understands what God is really after more than anybody else really knows how to say. And then couple that with the idea that he's performing miracles. Like there's word out there that he's been walking on water. He's healing people's legs that were broken or not working. He's healing lepers. He's hugging them and healing them at the same time. I heard he spit in a guy's eye and wiped mud on it. And somehow, like, that guy forms a movement. And people want to follow him. And he becomes such a big deal in this whole area of Israel and so many people want to follow him that he becomes a challenge to the local aristocracy and to the local religious establishment. And so you know what happens then. They have to preserve their power, their authority. And so they say, we got to get rid of this guy. Sure, he's a nice guy, and sure, he says some compelling stuff, but we got to get rid of this guy. Because what Jesus was saying was different. He was inviting people into a totally new way of life. He was saying stuff like, hey, you've heard eye for an eye, tooth for a tooth. And everybody said, yeah, we've heard that. That's a generous way of putting it. Like that way nobody keeps on fighting. It's just one thing or the other. And Jesus says, well, you've heard eye for an eye, tooth for a tooth, but I tell you, turn the other cheek. Turn the other cheek. Just let him do that again. Give mercy instead. He said, you have heard that it was said, hate your enemy. But I tell you, love your enemy and pray for those who persecute you. Pray for the ones who persecute me, Jesus? The ones who want to hurt me and my family and the people who I'm around? You want me to pray for them? You want me to love them? Are you serious? Jesus says, no, you've heard it said, don't break an oath. I'm telling you, live your life in such a way that you don't even have to take an oath. That just by saying yes or just by saying no, people understand it's going to be done or not done. Jesus was inviting people into a whole new way of life, and they killed him for it. But luckily for us, he raised from the dead. He was raised from the dead because he lived a sinless and a perfect life. And he called all of his followers to live like he did and to do what he said to do. And they took him seriously. They really took him seriously. They started following him and doing everything they could to live just like Jesus. And they went around the entire known world as far as they could go. They went as far as they could go, and they were preaching about this Jesus. Now, here's what you got to understand. Jesus, like Isaiah, was a Jewish man, and he grew up in a Jewish context in the ancient Near East. This was very different from any context in, say, Greece or Rome or India. And yet, there were missionaries going there and down into Africa. They were sending people, and they were saying, hey, look, there's this guy, Jesus, and he was the Son of God. And he invited us into a new way of life. In fact, he invited us into a new way of being human. And they're doing this in the context where, like, if you were Jewish, you understood what Messiah meant. You understood why this was such a big deal, but they're having to speak this into new contexts. See, when Isaiah gave his prophecy all those years before, he wasn't just talking about Jews. He wasn't just talking about Jews. He was talking about the entire world. He's talking about the entire world coming to know God and being unified. And so as all these Christian missionaries went out around the world into Africa and India and Greece and Rome, as they went out and they started winning people to Jesus, what we see is that prophecy coming true. People were coming to know the true God through Israel. That Israel was supposed to be this light to the non-Jews, to bring them to God, and that through Jesus, that was happening. And the first Christians, they couldn't get over this. They thought it was so amazing. They thought it was so amazing that they had been blessed with the opportunity to be on the ground level of this new thing that God was doing, this new creation God was starting. In fact, here's one of the things they wrote. They said, therefore, if anyone is in Christ, the new creation has come, the old is gone, the new is here. Now, they're obviously talking about a person here, right? Like if you have decided you're going to follow Jesus, that if you are in Christ, you are a new creation. That means you, follower of Jesus, are a new creation. You are a new way of being human. And you're going to follow Jesus. You're going to do what Jesus did. And then at the end of it all, when you die, when your time comes, you will be raised from the dead ultimately just like Jesus was. Because you follow Jesus in life, you'll also follow him in death. But we're not just talking about people here either. We're talking about everything is changing. It's the entire world. All of creation is being transformed. It's being renewed. Every little bit of it. Jesus says, you are a new creation. And you're part of the new creation too. Now, if that's true, then it should shake something within you. It should shake something within you that you're not part of the old way anymore. You don't have to do those things anymore because you are a new way of being human. And I want these words to kind of shake you around a little bit. I want you to read this. Paul writes this to some other Christians. He says, look, and do this, understanding the present time. The hour has already come for you to wake up from your slumber because our salvation is nearer now than when we first believed. Now, he's saying that day when Jesus returns is nearer now than it was yesterday. Now watch this. He goes on. The night is nearly over. The day is almost here. So let us put aside the deeds of darkness and put on the armor of light. Isaiah was saying the light is coming. The first Christian says the light has arrived. The light is here now. The idea is this, that you and I, if we are really following Jesus, if Jesus has really made a new creation out of us, If we have discovered this new way of being human, we ought to live like it. That there ought to be something different about us. When the rest of the world despairs, when the rest of the world says, hey, this thing is breaking apart at the seams, when everybody else feels like they can't keep it together, when they lash out in anger, when they withdraw from everybody else, when they feel like they don't know what to do, when they distract themselves and numb themselves with substances and media or whatever it is, when they do that, you're different. And that's the bottom line of everything this morning. You need to live like you have learned a new way to be human. And part of that is living with hope. It's living with hope. When nobody else has hope, you can have hope because you know that Jesus is mighty to save. You know that God will overcome, that the darkness may come, but it will not overcome us. Because we have the King of Kings, the Prince of Peace, the Lord of Lords on our side every moment of every day. We've made room for him in our hearts. Sometimes, though, we go back to that old way. We forget we've been made into this new way of being human. But that old way didn't fit us anymore. I've got these boxes in my house, and maybe you do too. I bet if you have a house of a certain age, you do. They're on the wall. Sometimes they're high, sometimes they're low. And they've got this other little smaller box within that had a little input there. And if you're under the age of 20, you probably have looked at these boxes a few times and gone, what is that? Probably has lint stuck in it at some point or in some of these. And you start wondering what that is. And there was a time when that box was probably the most important thing in that entire house, other than the people that live there. It's where you plugged in your phone. And that phone was generally located in a very central location of the house, and everybody heard every little thing. You had to be very careful being on that phone. Now, if you came along a little bit later, like say in the 90s or something, maybe you had 2 phones in your house, maybe 3. Maybe you even had 2 phone lines in that house. You had to be careful. Talking on the phone, someone might pick up the other end. You had to listen for that little click. Maybe you're getting on the internet when the old dial-up internet was coming out, and you're on the phone, and somebody gets on, and it's like that most annoying sound in the world. You can Google it later. It was awful. Now we have cell phones. We don't need those things, though. That was one time, it was one of the most important things was having that phone right there, especially in case of an emergency. And it might ring in the middle of the night. Now we have cell phones. We have do not disturb. You call me, you better call me 4 times. Thank you. Yeah. Now, my point is this. That old telephone, it's part of an old way of life. It's never coming back. So we can't keep making ourselves live as if we need that cell phone or that telephone box that plugs in our kitchen. It may still be there. You can still kind of see it, but it doesn't do us any good. It's like my friend who lost like 4 pant sizes. He went from being a 3X to now just an L, right? He was a 3XL, now he's just an L. He's lost a lot of weight, a lot of hard work, a lot of dieting, a lot of nutrition, watching what he does. He had to go buy new pants. Why would he keep trying to wear 3X pants? He was excited to put on L pants, just regular large pants. He was so pumped up about that. Why keep going back to the old way? It doesn't fit you anymore. And the same is true in our Christian life. Quit going back to the old way. You don't have to do that. Live as if you have learned that there's a new way to be human. Live with that joy. Live with that hope in your life. Some of the first Christians wrote about this, and they said, we don't live like those who have no hope, because we know we have a great hope in Jesus. Now you might be wondering, how do I do that? I'm sold, I'm bought in, how do I do that? Well, let me give you 4 pieces of advice to help you as you want to grow as a person of hope in this new way of being human. And the first is this: read what Jesus said and did. Some of us, we go to church, but we hardly ever read what Jesus actually said and Jesus actually did. I want to challenge you to do that. I mean, I can tell you what I think all day long, but at the end of the day, Jesus is a better teacher than me. Go read what he said. Go listen to what he said. Maybe you got like an audio version of the Bible, like an app on your phone. Just listen. Read it. I don't know. Read what he said. Read what he did. Let that inform your life. Secondly, do what Jesus said to do. Pretty clear. If Jesus said, do this, then you should do that. Start living it out. This is the way that you become this new creation. Right? If you don't know how, go back, see the first thing. Read what Jesus said and did. And then go do it. Third, live your faith with others. I think this is so important. So many of us want this. We've been told by the rest of the world that faith needs to be a private thing. Religion is something you don't discuss. Disagree. Disagree wholeheartedly. What we believe is one of the most important things about us, especially when it comes to this. And when you surround yourself with other Jesus followers, it helps you as you continue to be formed in the image of Jesus, as you continue to be in this new way of being human. Now, I think that Church on the Drive is the best place to do that, but it may not be for you. I want it to be somewhere for you. I want it to be so you need to live your life, live your faith with others. So that maybe that means you need to get yourself into a small group soon. Maybe that means you need to start serving on a team. Maybe it means you need to be at church more regularly. Maybe you need to take people to dinner and develop some kind of relationship, or make sure that your kids are on certain sports teams or whatever. Live your faith with others, because iron sharpens iron and you become this new human a little bit more easily. And finally this, pray consistently. Take time to pray consistently. A lot of us, we give up because we start praying and then we say our piece and we say our words and then we don't hear anything. Now we're expecting some grand vision like Isaiah got. We're going, all right, God, are you going to show me what to do now? Are you going to make a book move from here to there? How's this work? I want you to pray. I want you to talk to God like you're talking to a friend. And keep at it. Pray consistently and see what happens. Even on the days where it feels like you're just talking into the darkness, I want you to pray consistently. I want you to be open to the idea that God might talk to you right in that moment, or God might kind of give you a nudge later in the day when you least expect it. Just keep praying consistently. Don't make it I'll pray whenever I sit down to dinner or whenever I go to sleep. No. I'll pray when I get in trouble for something, or I'll pray when I've stepped out of line, or I'll pray. No. Pray consistently at a certain time if you can. Get where it's quiet. I think if you'll do those things, that you'll begin to grow in your faith. I think you'll begin to grow as this new way of being human. Let me pray for you. Father, thank you for sending us Jesus, who shows us a whole new way to be human. One way that's marked by hope. Lord, forgive us as we cling to the old ways that involve fear and pride and self-interest. Lord, give us the courage to live as if we've learned this new way of being human. Help us in a world that feels like it's tearing itself apart to be the people saying there is something better than this. It's the way of Jesus. It's making him king. And help us to do our part when it comes to that, to live as if it's true that he is king, and that he has transformed us and he has transformed the world, and that we're just moving in that direction, anticipating that kingdom to come. Help us to talk about it. We ask it in Jesus' name. Amen.